2013 season, Alex Rodriguez was hit with the biggest doping suspension in Major League sports. He was suspended 213 games by Commissioner Bud Selig. That's about equivalent to 1.5 seasons. A little credibility I have regarding this topic is I played baseball all my life up to college, and my dad played professionally for the Kansas City Royals for 7 years. So today I'm going to talk about performance-enhancing drugs and how it affected the MLB, and the drug policies along with some of the players that have been caught, and the short-term and long-term effects that these substances have on the body. So the 1998 baseball season was arguably one of the best regular seasons in baseball history. The guy on the left is Mark McGwire, who led the season with 70 home runs and 147 RBIs, and the player on the right is Sammy Sosa, who shortly followed with 66 home runs and 158 RBIs. Along with these two players, 13 others had 40-plus home runs this season, which is unheard of. In today's baseball, the top leading home run hitter has 39. Out of 8 of those 13 players that had 40-plus home runs, 8 of them were on performance-enhancing drugs. This is an example. Manny Ramirez. In 2007, Manny Ramirez was coming off one of the worst seasons of his career. So in 2008, at the age of 35, he was reaching the end of his seasons, and he knew he had to do something to change it. So he took a performance-enhancing drug. That year, he had one of the best seasons of his career. He had 37 home runs, 120 RBIs, and brought his batting average up to 300 that year. But shortly after, in May 8, 2009, he was caught for doping and suspended from the MLB. Having Manny Ramirez coming off a great year, Alex Rodriguez knew he wanted to do something like he did to help his game. So he went to Anthony Bosch on the bottom, who ran a biogenesis clinic not any longer, that provided illegal substances for athletes. Alex Rodriguez was this player and went to Anthony Bosch and discussed, I need to make my game better. So Anthony Bosch got him on a program along with a bunch of testosterone boosters and all that. But shortly after, in 2012-2013 season, he was caught and suspended. Now I'm going to talk about some of the drugs that are banned. So there's 3 categories of drugs that they look for. There's 76 performance-enhancing drugs that they test for. There's 56 stimulant drugs that they test for. And then there's 8 narcotic drugs they test for, and this is all done through a urine sample. Now when they drug test you, the first day they drug test you is the first day of spring training. And then throughout the season, they're not allowed to drug test you unless they have probable cause. And then with suspensions, your first offense is 15 to 25 games. Your second offense is 25 to 50 games. Your third offense is 50 to 75 games. And your fourth offense could be a season or more depending on what the commissioner wants to do. And these suspensions go into the playoffs if their team were to make it, and it's with no pay. Now, Jose Canseco, who played during the 1998 season and was one of those players who had 40-plus home runs, was mad because he was one of those players that tested positive for steroids and couldn't make it into the Hall of Fame. So in 2005, he wrote a book called Juice, and within this book, he named close to 100 players that he believed or knew were on steroids. And shortly after, a bunch of baseball associates looked into it, and years later, he found out that he was about 80% right on the players he called out. Now, the asterisk is something that players who have tested positive for a substance have next to their name. Take it, Barry Bonds, who's the all-time leading home run hitter with 762 home runs, will never be inducted into the Hall of Fame due to him testing positive for substance abuses. And finally, players are only noticing the short-term effects from steroids and not the long-term effects. So the 4 main drugs that people test for are anabolic steroids, which is a synthetic modification of a testosterone, and this is your major drug found in athletes. Then you have your designer steroids, which is a class under anabolic steroids, which is undetectable through a urine sample. And you have your androsteroids, which increases your testosterone level from your adrenal gland. And you have HGH, or human growth hormones, which is a muscle growth supplement. that has an anabolic effect administered through injection. Now, some short-term effects steroids have is it increases your metabolism, increases your testosterone levels, increases your strength, your recovery time, and increases your ambition and drive, which gives these players an unfair advantage due to the ones that don't cheat. But the long-term effects are much worse. The long-term effects could be severe acne, roid rage, baldness, strokes, blood clots, enlarged prostate, reduced sperm count, and the list goes on and on and on. So today I've talked about the PEDs and how it's affected the MLB, the drug policies, and the short-term and long-term effects. Today's society is advancing, and players are getting away with the performance-enhancing drugs. So the MLB either needs to step it up and be stricter on disciplining players, or it needs to make a more effective way to drug test these players. In conclusion, although players see a short-term effect from these drugs, it won't be around much later in life due to the long-term effects.